He drove his 9 months pregnant wife to the hospital, dropped her at the entrance, and never came inside. She gave birth alone. 19 hours, no hand to hold, no message, nothing. And when it was finally over, when she was holding her newborn son for the very first time, she looked at her phone. Not one word from her husband, just a text from an unknown number, 4 words. "Your mother prepared for this." Her mother had been dead for 6 years. If you want to see how Nadia destroyed him, reclaimed every last thing he touched, and walked out of that courtroom holding her son and her dignity, hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like button, and drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from, because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The labor had lasted 19 hours. Nadia had called Ethan 4 times. The first 2 calls went to voicemail. The third time he picked up, she could hear music in the background, laughter, and he said, "You'll be fine, you're a strong woman." Then he hung up. The 4th call he didn't answer. She named the baby alone, Oliver. She'd always loved that name. Ethan had said it sounded weak. When she was discharged 2 days later, she sat in the hospital pickup zone with a newborn in her arms and a single overnight bag at her feet. A nurse hovered nearby, glancing at the door like she was waiting for someone to arrive. No one came. Nadia called an Uber. She went home, to the house she thought was theirs, and found the locks changed. A note was taped to the door in Ethan's handwriting. "Nadia, I've spoken to a lawyer. I think it's best for both of us if you make other arrangements. The marriage was a mistake." She stood on the porch, a newborn against her chest, reading those words 3 times. The neighbor's sprinklers clicked on. A dog barked somewhere down the street. The world kept moving like none of this was happening. Then her phone buzzed again. The unknown number. "Check the photo I'm sending. Your mother left this with me 6 years." She said, "Give it to Nadia when she has nowhere else to go." The attachment loaded. A handwritten letter, her mother's looping cursive unmistakable, "My darling Nadia. If you're reading this, then I was right about him. I'm sorry I was right, but I prepared for this. Everything you need is waiting. Call Patricia Shaw. She has the documents. Do not react. Do not let him see you coming. You have more power than you know." Nadia's mother had been dead for 6 years. Ovarian cancer, swift and cruel. She'd spent her final months telling Nadia she was worried about Ethan. Nadia had told her she was being overprotective. She hadn't been. Nadia sat down on the porch step, Oliver sleeping against her chest, and read the letter 4 more times. Something cold and clear settled inside her. Not rage, not grief. Something far more dangerous. Patience. She called her college roommate, stayed 2 nights on a pull-out couch, and waited until morning to call Patricia Shaw. Patricia's voice was crisp, professional, and completely unsurprised. "I've been expecting this call, Nadia. Your mother came to me when she was diagnosed. She had 12 years of work to hand over. Are you ready to understand what she built?" The house Ethan had changed the locks on. Purchased 18 years ago by a trust in Nadia's mother's name, transferred to Nadia upon her mother's death through a mechanism so clean and legally airtight that Ethan's name had never appeared on the actual deed. The version he'd seen during the marriage, the one his lawyer referenced, was a duplicate. A document her mother had quietly replaced before the wedding. The investment accounts Ethan bragged about to his colleagues, seeded with money from a portfolio her mother had managed quietly for 2 decades, transferred into a structure that reverted entirely to Nadia the moment she was abandoned or divorced against her will. He had been living in her house, spending her money, building a life on a foundation her mother had designed to collapse the second he showed who he really was. "Why didn't she just tell me?" Nadia whispered. "Because she wanted you to have a real marriage," Patricia said. "She hoped she was wrong, but she also made sure that if she wasn't, you would never be powerless." Nadia didn't react. She didn't post. She didn't call Ethan. She didn't cry to mutual friends. She let him celebrate. He was celebrating. Within 2 weeks of changing the locks, he'd moved a woman named Cassandra into the house, a woman he'd apparently been seeing for over a year. He posted photos on social media. Dinners, smiles, #new chapter, #peace. Nadia watched from a distance and documented everything. Patricia's team had already begun the legal process. The house would be reclaimed. The accounts would be frozen. Every dollar Ethan had spent that wasn't his would be traced, calculated, and attached to a civil claim so comprehensive it would take a skilled lawyer 3 days just to read it. They waited until Ethan had signed a lease on a new car, applied for a personal loan using the house as collateral, and made a very public speech at a business event about his financial success and stable home base. Then Patricia filed. Ethan received the documents on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, every account was frozen. By Tuesday evening, his loan application had been flagged. By Wednesday, Cassandra had questions he couldn't answer. He called Nadia 17 times. She answered once, calmly, simply, "Talk to my lawyer." The court hearing lasted 2 days. Ethan's attorney argued manipulation, argued fraud, argued that a dead woman's documents couldn't be trusted. The judge reviewed 12 years of paper trails, notarized records, and a video testimony Nadia's mother had recorded from her hospice bed, eyes clear, voice steady, explaining every decision she'd made and why. Ethan had nothing. The ruling was total. The house, the accounts, the car he'd purchased, restitution for 4 years of misappropriated funds, full custody of Oliver with supervised visitation contingent on behavior. Nadia stood on the courthouse steps holding her son, and a reporter asked her how she felt. "I feel like my mother never stopped protecting me," she said, "even after she was gone." 6 months later, Nadia opened the last thing Patricia had been holding, a small envelope her mother had marked, "For after you've won." Inside was a single note card. "Now build something that lasts. I left enough. Use it to help the women who don't have a mother like me." Nadia stood in the kitchen of the house that had always been hers, Oliver asleep in the next room, and understood that her mother hadn't just saved her. She'd handed her a purpose. If you're watching this feeling like you've already lost, like someone took everything and left you holding nothing, I want you to know, the women who win aren't the ones who scream the loudest. They're the ones who go quiet, go patient, and come back with everything they need. Don't give up. Document everything. Know your worth. And subscribe right now, because what Nadia built next, the foundation, the courtroom victories for other women, the moment Ethan finally understood the scale of what he'd thrown away, it's the part of the story you don't want to miss. Drop a comment below. What time is it where you're watching? And tell us, did Nadia's mother do the right thing? We'll see you in the next one.